So without further ado, please go ahead.
It's a beautiful time that we are here right now, having gone through so many ideas from Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, DeFi, NFTs, metaverses. All these ideas are great. And I've been having amazing conversation outside with many of you as well on how these ideas can fit into your businesses, into your life, and where you can bring this to existence. And unless it's in real life, unless you experience it, you're not going to understand the full scope of it. So if there's one thing that you can do within the next day, 2 days, when these ideas are fresh, it is to get something, deploy something using blockchain as a test case. It doesn't have to be what you want to do in your business. It doesn't have to be how and what you see in your use cases, but just try it. One transaction, one contract that you own, and that is when you would see the challenges, you would see the opportunities, you would see how it is working in real life. So we're going to show a short video, a video where you can see how something can come to life in a matter of few minutes. Yes, we have discussed the difficulties and how it is to learn, but if something can be done in a matter of few minutes, it's beautiful. And let's get the video live for that.
The page that you're looking at is the Ford Factory login page, and the way you'll get here is by typing fordfactory.net into your browser. When you open this page, it's going to ask you to register a profile. My profile is already registered, and I'm going to log into the factory either by entering my email address and my password, or by logging in with Facebook or with Google. So let's go ahead and log into the factory and see what it looks like. As soon as you've logged in, you're going to be prompted to connect your wallet to the factory. And you've got a choice of these wallets. I'm going to connect a MetaMask to the factory. And my MetaMask credentials are saved, so it's immediately connecting me to the factory. And now we can actually have a look around the factory and see what we've got and where we can navigate. There are various tabs which will take you through to the blog, to the community channels. If you're a developer, you can upload a contract or you can create a template. And then on the left-hand side, the menu actually takes you through to the various sections of the factory that you can use as an end user. There's the marketplace, the applications that you've already downloaded and deployed, and there's a place for templates, the settings, and you can log out. Let's go through to the marketplace and see what that looks like. As soon as we access the marketplace, you'll see that there are a list of categories, the various types of contracts that have been deployed as templates that you can utilize in your business, and then various keywords. And you can search for various contracts just by doing a keyword search to find the contract that's most applicable to your business case. We can have a look through some of the contracts that we've got here. I'm going to go briefly through the mintable token with ownership control and show you how you can customize that template fully for your particular use case. The mintable token with ownership control is an ERC20 ownable and mintable contract, which is a contract that allows you as a user to create and manage your own digital tokens. And the users who create it can set certain rules around who owns the tokens and who you can transfer the tokens to, as well as how many of those tokens can actually be created. This provides you with a lot of flexibility for your business and organizes how you want to create your own tokens, what various purposes you create your tokens for, such as reward programs, or fundraising campaigns, etc. And there are various features in this tokens which we can have a look at. And this button allows you to deploy this token with one click. You can go and have a look at the audit. You can also have a look at the recent deployments. Now this is very, very important if you want to see the ratings, reviews of the particular contract that you're looking to deploy, and to see how many times it's actually been used by somebody else. On the left-hand side, it shows you the different networks that it's been deployed on. It shows you when this contract was deployed, and it shows you the address that deployed this. So the next step for us would be to actually go and deploy this contract. So we'll click deploy, and it'll take you through to the screen which allows you to edit this template. You can see the way it's laid out. It's a complete drag and drop builder which allows you to customize this particular template for your business case with your branding, your elements. And at the top here is the functionality that actually takes you through. So you've got functionality that will allow you to edit this template and customize it fully for your business in whichever way that you need to. Let's start off with the basic contract functions and how you can customize it. You've got link blocks, you can add quotes, you can add in different text sections. You can change the configuration of the columns from 1, 2, or 3 different columns, or a split of column sizes. You can add text with different fonts. You can add links, images, there's videos. You can add nav bars, countdowns. And then at the bottom, you can see the different contract integrations that are inside this particular contract. So let's see how this will work. So let's just say you wanted to add the functionality of adding a different text section. You go across, grab this text section, and drag it in on the right. And then you can go inside, and you can actually customize this particular text section however you need to. So if you wanted to go across and change the background, you just click on the background, you go to decorations, have a look at the background color, and let's just say we want the background color red. Don't know if I like that, so let's go down here and maybe choose a green. Okay, you might like green a bit better. And once you're happy with everything that you've done in this particular contract, let's just say I don't particularly like this text section, I'm going to take it out. In fact, I don't like this background either. I'm going to change it back to what we had, which was a blue. Yes, that looks much better. Suits my branding and colors. And then I'm going to save this particular contract. You'll see that at the top here, we have different functionalities that will allow you to either mint or transfer the token. And that'll be handled in another video just to show you how this actually works. The addresses, amounts that you're going to be using, the contract addresses, checking user balances, etc. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And we're taken through to a screen where we need to now actually customize our contract, give it a name, and let's run through that functionality. So we know that the contract is called a mintable token with ownership control. And this is the description. It's an ERC20 ownable mintable contract. It explains the type of contract, which basically allows a user to create and manage their own digital tokens in the blockchain. Here, the user who creates it can set certain rules around who can own and transfer the tokens, as well as how many tokens can be created. This provides greater flexibility for businesses and organizations who want to create their own tokens for various purposes, such as reward programs, funding campaigns. Okay, I'm in the right place. I like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize this. So firstly, I'm going to upload an icon. And let's just have a look and see what I'm going to put in here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in the Mitch token image. So let's add that in. Yes, I like that. And now I'm going to enter in a token name. And this token name, I'm going to call it Mitch's Business Token. And I like that name. And then I'm going to add in the description. For the description, I'm just going to basically use the same name that I've used here. Just remember that the name that you use as the application will also be the name that is your subdomain, which we can add in here. So I've called my token Mitch's Business Token. I've added in the application description, which is Mitch's Business Token. I'm going to add in a subdomain. And this identifies and allows your users to see when they come to use that application, it's a name which they can really easily recognize. The name of this token is Mitch's Business Token, and my ticker signal, I'm going to call it MBT, Mitch's Business Token, and I'll submit that information. What it does is it starts connecting me to my MetaMask, and I'm going to confirm that particular token. It goes into the blockchain, and it allows me to mint this particular contract. I'm going to confirm that transaction, and it's going to deploy this particular contract contract has been deployed, the application has been deployed, and you can see that in my applications, over here, my new contract, Mitch's business token, is alive and ready to use.
So what you saw here right now is a process through which, without coding, you're not programming, you're not getting into the technicalities, but you can get your token for any use. It could be to reward people, it could be to play around, to just test, try, transact, try things out, or you could run different activities with it. The creativity is left to you. But what's happening here is that your token is on the blockchain. If it is an NFT, you could upload your images and get your NFT out and up and running here. So there are many use cases. It could be used to tokenize some assets if you have a real world asset as well. So the end goal is blockchain is progressing to the point where anybody with zero technical knowledge using platforms like Forward could go live and bring their ideas. It is no longer a place to just discuss or ideate. It's about action, because action is where the reward is. Action is where the utility is. So without further ado, before we forget everything that we learned in this conference, let's go check out in a platform like Forward to try what can we do within few minutes to bring our ideas to life. That's it from my end, guys, and let's get started with the time.
So can we start with Mr. Key, please?
Sure. So to put blockchain in simple words, it's a series of blocks of data that's connected to one another. And all of this data is not stored in one centralized servers. It's not stored in a cloud by a company who can access, read it, or play with it. But that data is hosted in a decentralized way called nodes, with numerous people, thousands or even millions of people around the world who cannot read the data, who cannot modify the data, because if they tamper with the data, that numerical computation is inaccurate and the data gets rejected, which ideally means everybody has the data but nobody can modify or do anything with it. Only authorized transactions happening according to the blockchain's algorithm can take place out there. And in an even basic way, if you want to put it, it's just that everybody has it but nobody can mess with it. And it provides for transparency if the blockchain permits it. Because not every blockchain is transparent, not every blockchain is even anonymous. There are many combinations, varieties of it. So it's just a database. It's a database which is storing that information in a new way. I was just having a conversation with people out there about blockchain, and even though it's a database, I was just telling them we need to use the first principles approach to understand blockchain. We cannot take the existing model of reality that we have in our mind and try to match it to understand blockchain. We need to erase everything that we know and rethink the new reality. Why is blockchain in the first place? Because if you want to understand something, you need to understand the why, the purpose behind it. Why blockchain? When everything in the world is going fine, having our phones, internet, databases, everything out there, the whole life is going on. So why change everything? Why disrupt it? It's because of the primary challenges that we are unable to overcome right now. The cost centers, which is coming because of centralization. The delay, the latency, which is coming because there's a complex structure of systems between companies, organizations, like the banks and the intermediaries and all of that that's happening in the network. There are levels of layers of restrictions and challenges for various reasons that centralized entities created, for profitability, for control, for trying to limit opportunities and whatever, different reasons out there. All of that has to change. And we need a world where things can happen fast, cross-border. We are in a globalized world right now. We are no longer dealing with people in our neighborhood, in our country. We are dealing with a very wide world. You don't even have law that can regulate the contracts that's happening in between two different countries right now. It's not easy. It's not within jurisdictions of countries. But all that complexity, you need a new solution. You need a solution that is beyond any geographical limitation between any one organization or between any one region. And that's where blockchain came from. A database that is virtually everywhere. Everybody sees it. It's accessible. Removes every point of manual processing that's required, from accounting to people required to process, approve, say that something is true or false. I was speaking with someone from an education organization as well, and with certifications. Do I even need to authorize and say, okay, this certificate is coming from this country, because I cannot just take my certificate and present it somewhere. I need to go through an entity, a governmental entity that looks at it, says, oh yeah, this certificate is tamper proof. I can check the seal, I can check everything. I'm putting a seal on there, and now you can take it to this other country, because now, because of the seal, they're going to trust. With blockchain, you don't need that. You can just check everything virtually in a second. Simplicity, decentralization, freedom at its core. It's a philosophy. It's not a technology. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blockchain adoption, I think there are two key factors here. One is education, and the other is simplicity. If the education can go there in the simplest form, in a way that is relatable, that's understandable, and more on an application, more on how someone can use it, apply it on a day-to-day basis in their life. If more of that can take place, more smarter people than us would actually go ahead and implement. Because world is full of smart people. They are better in their own industries in what they do. And the problem with this industry is that at this point, it's people in the blockchain industry creating things for them within themselves. And the next step can only take place with that simplicity and education. And when I say simplicity, what do I mean there? If someone is using any of these applications, like your mobile apps that you use for any day-to-day payment purposes, or for you to buy things, e-commerce, all of that, if you can use anything powered by blockchain in the same manner, with the same level of simplicity, without having to think, worry, or try to go through a process, you don't want to go through that. So businesses, startups that can make it that simple, or the ones like a no-brainer, they would end up using it. Because just think about it, when you move to this whole world of mobile application, mobile banking, you don't have to go through a steep learning curve. You are using a web-based banking solution, and now it's in the mobile. It's a seamless transition. And that's the same transition that has to come here. But then that does come with certain challenges, like a security concern, which we need to deal with. But that's on to the startups to work around. But then the biggest adoption challenge that we hear is the regulatory part. I think when it comes to regulation, we should take it at a bite-sized approach. When we look at the whole of the blockchain industry and say, oh, there's cryptocurrencies, there's anonymity, privacy, and blah, 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 and we go into a point of, we start. If we just take one step at a time, what is the first step? Does any government organization have any problems with blockchain? Probably not. They have issues with crypto, so let's keep it away.
I think you nicely delved into the next point, which is the regulatory uncertainty. I mean, to follow on what you said, I personally have worked with the Central Bank of Jordan, the Central Bank of Egypt, the Parliament and the House of Lords in the UK, and what we see is there's a lot of interest from regulators, but there is so little action. So if you can explain to us, like, you feel like the regulators, governments, banks understand the size of the change, the size of the opportunity, the size of the threat maybe to their traditional revenue streams, and certainly it taps into the next point, which is a little bit of security. So if you can elaborate a little bit more about the regulatory side of the business, and certainly we will also hear from you, because you're in a financial service provider, and how can we, as a community, work with the regulator in achieving what we want to achieve in terms of a technology revolution, in terms of changing the standard way of doing things?
I don't know if this is a very apt question, but I remember in the very early days, when you go and try to fill up a form in government or in other places, there's a cost to the form. You need to pay some money for a form to fill it. But now when it's digitalized, you don't have that. So does that mean that the government is losing revenue there? Probably not. They have a new way of monetizing it. So in every step of the way, I think it's important for every entity to think, what is the new opportunity that's being presented with this change that's happening here, and how do you monetize in this new environment? It's giving some comfort, it's giving some advantages, and what does that advantages mean to them and to their customers? And where is the new opportunity evolving? Because the world is constantly changing. new opportunities come and the old problems die. And we are in the business of service. Whether it's a government or bank or whoever it is, we're all in the business of servicing someone to solve a particular problem. So if the problems are changed, it is essential for us to change with it and meet the particular solution that the people are looking for. Otherwise, there are going to be other products that's trying to do the same thing in ways that might or might not be compliant, and we don't want that. So it is important to deal with the new business models, which ideally means they need to think ground up. Okay, what do these people need right now? Global international transfers, fast transfers. They want solutions that are, from a regulatory side, combined with the AML and KYC norms. So what can we do with the power of blockchain? Can we go use a private blockchain? Can we make every wallet holder require to have KYC and AML as part of the process? Can we give them the freedom by removing intermediate banks to directly access the international payment networks? And most of these are in S, and these are benefiting the banks and the regulators, because now a lot of manual work for having false documentation, false information has to go out. With the blockchain, with the transparency, it's hard to lie, it's hard to fake, it's hard to misrepresent. It makes life of a lot of individuals who try to circumvent the system harder as well, which is good for the regulators. So now it's to look at the positives and see how to balance both of those things, which ideally means that we need experts on the blockchain side, some creative thinkers, artists, etc., to come together with the regulatory bodies to create these new systems, because we are not adopting blockchain in there as a part of the process, but they are reinventing the systems out there. And I mean, it's almost like one of the biggest challenges that came with the regulators is that they cannot just add this in there. It's not like something that you plug in. It is a fundamental shift, and that is painful. That costs a lot of money, that takes a lot of time, and it is a process that might take a lot of learning over the next few years to actualize. But if you need to do it, you need to do it. And the longer it takes, the problematic it is.
Thank you. Can you talk us a little bit about this, if it's creating opportunities maybe, or if it's really creating challenges for projects in terms of cost of implementation, ways of implementing it? If we, for example, assume that we bypassed the first three problems, how do we solve the cost of implementation? And is it a matter of learning? So the more we learn, the more we reduce the cost of this?
At this point, the primary cost of implementation is the knowledge and developers, mostly developers. It's a new technology, so the number of developers who have learned it in the past have been super less. And in the blockchain space, when you go talk to a developer, how many years of experience you have? 1 year, amazing. 1 year is a great experience in development. 2-3 years is great. A CTO is 4 years, a developer is a CTO on it. So it's very different because it's a new market, and the skill set has not penetrated that deep, that far. So the cost should go down, and it's already starting to go down drastically in the last 1 year, 1.5 years, as more and more developers learn. I can already see around the world in developing countries and etc. people are learning. The schools for teaching about blockchain development. So it's a matter of time. Like any technology, the cost is high at the start, it goes down. So the cost of implementation is not my major area of concern at this point. It is for new innovators creating absolute new products, but for entities deploying it, it's a matter of time for the cost to get adjusted.
Thank you so much.
I would say the first thing is to stop listening. Because a lot of times the problem comes because you're listening too much. When you have an idea, when you have something that you want to go out with, you're going to have tons of resistance. So you need to take that step forward and anyways do it. If you believe this is a solution that will help people that you see, that you know, and you're solving someone's problem. And especially, you need to be in a position to avoid resistance. If investors are involved, they would want you to probably go to the market faster, prove something faster. If there are, every stakeholder has their own interest. It is important as the founder of your business to focus on what you need to do to make this work for yourself as a company. If you can stay focused on that, a lot of problems will go away. But to become a unicorn, for you to be that very large company, you need to constantly innovate. Be ready to pivot, be ready to change your business. You spend 3 months, 6 months in building something that you believe in, but 6 months after, maybe you're obsolete. You need to change the direction. So be ready for that. In the past, technology was changing once in a year. Probably you might need to recheck. In the blockchain right now, if you don't check what's happening for a month, you go out for a vacation, probably you don't even belong there anymore. That's how fast things are going. Because you are at a point in time where there are millions of social and economic experiments, new experiments happening at the same time. So things are changing fast. And as long as you can keep yourself dynamic and be open to your own know-how and intuition and use everything that you hear around with a grain of salt, you're able to continue progressing ahead. So
we agree with or the issue now with banks is that everyone hates banks, but everyone trusts their own bank. So if you ask someone, what's the problem in the world, they tell you banks. But if you ask them, who do you trust the most, it's their bank manager.
You're right.
So I think maybe it's impossible to make everyone in the world trust you. And probably that's where blockchain came trustless. So I don't need to trust someone to make sure that what I want to do is going to happen. So maybe on that front, are we spending a lot of time trying to make people like blockchain? Do we need to do something more for the adoption than just people liking it? Is it in real world applications? I mean, in essence, it's simple. You tell people it's less fees and faster. Those are the two most important parts for anyone who's trying to transfer money.
Right.
But from your more general perception of blockchain, what should we do to capitalize on the fact that we don't need people to trust it?
I think I'm a believer in results, and time speaks for itself. When there has been challenges around various, let's say, exchanges going down, the decentralized exchanges were functioning fine. The custodians and even lending and borrowing platforms are functioning fine. When there is same banking turmoil was going in other parts as well. So blockchain over the period has proven itself that under massive pressure, it can still sustain and function because it's functioning on some of the fundamental philosophies. Like when you have to borrow something on the blockchain, you use over-collateralization. How can you ever go wrong when you have way more collateral than what you need? Because it's functioning on a different trustless model. You cannot obviously function in do the same thing that you do in the bank over there, but it works very differently, and that difference is what brings the security, it's what brings the protection. So I think the proof is happening with the time. And as more and more happens, people will look up and see, okay, where is a safer haven, where is a better solution, where else can I move which protects? It's just like when the real estate goes down, people look at commodities to move their money to. When people are looking at bank deposits, and if there's a problem there, like that's going on in the US right now, then what are people looking at? Okay, probably should I go and have gold, physical gold storage? Or if that is not permissible, where else can I go? People search for solutions. You don't need to feed them the solutions. Solutions has to be there with a track record, and they just need to be educated that it exists. And as long as it's in the vicinity, people are smart. Because we humans are surviving species. We always find solutions to our existential problems. So we don't need to stuff it down your throat, just spray it around like paper, and they'll sniff it up. Especially comes to the carrier portion of what's happening here. If you look at the past, we had full-time jobs. People go for jobs and they do their work. And then you slowly had the freelancers who are working virtually and so on. And the COVID made remote jobs and freelancing jobs more. But blockchain is creating a new model of jobs called micro jobs. It's the jobs that you don't even know what you're necessarily contributing to, but it's a small part of the process that you're contributing. So I know a company, one of the companies which is dealing with ships is tracking ships, where a user just has to go scan a ship and upload its location, and he gets paid for that. If you're driving a car which is powered by blockchain, when you leave a way for someone behind, you get paid. Guys who needs to go faster pay someone else who is ahead of them to move ahead, and others who are ready to wait, they are behind and they're okay with it. So there are a lot of these jobs coming up. In a day, a person will be doing 20 micro jobs. And this is what I believe translates to universal basic income. It's not governments giving free money, but it is about these solutions that's coming up, which is contributing to it. But what you said is, one thing is pretty right. The future war is an information war. It's a war on data, and that is why blockchain is ahead of it to protect it. And attacks on these technology, attacks on this infrastructure is where the next set of challenges would emerge, because there's no monetization capabilities in any other types of war right now. And the future of, if this infrastructure is working in a micro-job environment, to halt a country, to halt something of that kind, you need to attack that. So protecting that more with blockchain is where the opportunity lies as well.
Identity on blockchain is a big thing, because how to secure that you are you, because it's decentralized. There's also some data which is hashed even. That's about you. How can this will be executed? And then another question, how this will be different from governments that are talking now about a digital identity. So what's the difference between decentralized identity and digital identity?
Okay, so let's first talk about identity. When we are looking at any form of, well, at this point, I'm sure you're familiar with these NFTs and monkey pictures. We are adding the monkey pictures as identity, but the real future with NFT is where our real passports and birth certificates, driving licenses, and all these documents are on blockchain, and that is connected and accessible for us anywhere. You are not going to lose them. You don't need to get a reprint of it. There's no false documents and all of that. It's verified because of the contract address. It's very verifiable, easy, and secure. And these documents moving to blockchain is already happening with multiple countries, and that will keep progressing. But then the concept of decentralized identity is it's a very similar concept, but then without a government issuing it, without a central body issuing it. So imagine if you have something through which you can access all your digital accounts. You can stay anonymous if you prefer to, because a decentralized identity is not coming from an entity that requires the visibility of the person. The anonymity is permitted, in which case you can still send information back and forth, authorize yourself without publishing that. So at this point, we are uploading our passports with every company that we sign up with. Every time I have to upload my sensitive identity information, where I stay, what I do, my bills, what I use, all of that to verify myself. But in a decentralized ID solution, it doesn't have to be that way. When I share information, the respective, you have technologies like zero knowledge proof, which can actually verify and validate something with zero knowledge of it. I don't want I like to verify myself, but I don't want my information going out. And that is important, because there's a lot of forgery and frauds happening because of this information being accessible. It's right now sitting in hundreds of databases. I have accounts across a lot of financial institutions, and all this data is out there, and it's at risk. And how do we solve it? And that's where the decentralized ID comes into play. It is a solution where your data is yours, and only yours. Even entity verifying it does not need to know who you are and what you do, but they need to know you are the rightful person and that you are safe to transact with. There is no AML risk to transact with you. All of that information is accessible, but not the core data itself.
Maybe that's key for the transition from Web 2 to Web 3, where in Web 2, someone is using your data and monetize it. In Web 3, you're using your data, you choose how your data is going to be monetized, and you gain the benefit. So I think the pushback is really from those who don't want you to use your data, and they want to continue to use your data. Can we have a question from the lady here, please?
Hello there, please excuse my allergies. We talked about the pros and encouraging governments to actually go with blockchains and cryptocurrency. But what is the weakest point, or what is the weakest link in blockchain?
I think the weakness of the blockchain is
where your data is stored. If a government were to run a blockchain, they would probably run few nodes themselves, which is a risk because it's in limited places. But if they completely adopt the decentralized approach with cryptographic encryption, they should be able to pay people or just get a lot of institutions and organizations around the world or within their country to have it and store it. Because if it is truly decentralized that way, the problems go down more and more. So when it is a centralized solution deployed as a private blockchain, the not doing that distribution is becoming the problem. And if they can solve that, overcome that, then I don't really see major challenges around it other than educating and onboarding people appropriately.
So if you can tell us from your experience of how you see the transition of authorities' acceptance of tokenization and blockchain-based systems, because we see usually the governments also looks at these systems as a threat because control is going away from them of a world that is meant to be decentralized. So, yes.
I'll ask my guests, but I mean, my answer is there is always, in most applications now of blockchain, there is always a component of compliance, whether it's global or on a domestic level. I think the current tools of KYC, know your customer, AML, anti-money laundering, all of these things are in place and applicable. And I think the government, as much as they're concerned, or the regulator, they need to know the source and the destination and the reason of any transaction. But nothing more and nothing less. So if blockchain applications are capable of giving that level of comfort to the regulator and to the government in general, in terms of understanding that part, I don't think they have a say in telling you use this bank instead of that bank. But please feel free to add.
Thank you for...
With this upcoming evolution, there are a lot of private and independent companies that will come up with their solutions to their various industry problems. And as long as government's regulations are very clear around what they need out of that, if it is data, if it's to ensure X, Y, and Z, as long as they make that very clear, the problems will be solved. Because as you rightly mentioned, more and more assets are coming digital. There is a report that says the $18 trillion market of asset tokenization has already started. So I see a world, but not very far, where we would be talking about not in just terms of net worth in dollars or our local currencies, but we'll be speaking about it in terms of I have 3 kgs of gold, I have 10 gallons of water, commodities. All of that as assets, where is your commodity? It's right on my phone because it's in a decentralized custodianship with an entity where I can trust and verify. It is verified by numerous third parties and it's safe. It's a private organization, but then what do governments want out? If they want to verify and tax them, that is possible because everything is on chain. With the KYC, everything, you know who is buying, who is trading, who is profiting. So it is a win-win-win where it brings more money transparently in a verifiable manner, and I believe the right taxation models will actually make them more, not less, with the system. As a permission network, these sanctioned countries cannot use them because the KYC and the policies are in place, but they can use any public network. And they're already, you know how the countries where there are challenges, they're already starting to use this because of the limitations. The people are struggling and there's a way out for them. So you cannot stop them from using the public networks. That is close to impossible. But within the networks that you're creating as an organization across the world with unison with other entities of similar interest, you will be able to regulate in any manner and form that you deem fit, not only with that, but with anything. I mean, you literally can set your own rules because blockchain is a place where you set your own governance, you set your law, you set your financial policies, you set your economy. Everything is created by the creator of the blockchain. So in there, it's your rule. Whether you say this is allowed or not allowed, it's up to you. But you cannot stop someone else coming up with a model that is okay for sanctioned countries. It exists in the current time. But now let me give you a couple of easy examples. When the situation came about that the address that you're using to send the money on the blockchain is coming on the screen, there were softwares, viruses, that would just show you the different address. It will show you your address that you want, but it will send the transaction somewhere else, which is when the offline authentication devices came in as a solution. And now there are problems where people verify the last 4 digits of something. Now they are trying to create a solution where everything else is different except the last and first 4 digits. So fraud is a progressive thing. They learn, they figure new ways, they're smart, just like...
And trust me, humans will always find a new way. I mean, it's a continuous thing. It starts with humans and then it's either regulated or not.
So maybe we can keep fighting for the right thing and keep updating and keep improvising. And that's why softwares have updates. Keep yourself updated.
I think there's a very interesting panel that's coming about